My girlfriend demanded. Choose between me and your service dog. I'm a disabled veteran. The dog alerts me to seizures. I said, that's not a choice. She reported the dog to my apartment as aggressive. When management called me, and I explained she'd filed a false report about a medical service animal. Original post. I, 31 male, am a disabled veteran. Got out of the Army about 4 years ago after a TBI from an IED left me with a seizure disorder. Not the kind where you just space out for a second, the full tonic-clonic kind. The ones where you wake up on the floor with a bitten tongue and no idea what year it is. I've had 3 concussions just from hitting furniture on the way down before I got my service dog. My dog is a 70-pound lab mix. She's been with me for almost 3 years. She was trained through a veteran assistance program, and she is, without exaggeration, the reason I can live alone. She alerts me anywhere from 2 to 15 minutes before a seizure hits. I don't fully understand the science, something about changes in my scent or behavior, but she has never missed one. Not once. When she paws on my leg and does that specific whine, I know I got minutes to get somewhere safe, lie down, and ride it out. She has literally saved my life. I started dating my girlfriend about 8 months ago. She knew from date 1 that I had the dog. She knew why. I showed her the dog's vest, explained the alerts, the whole deal. She said she was totally fine with dogs, and even called it sweet that the VA helped me get her. Things were good for a while. She'd come over, we'd cook dinner, watch movies, normal stuff. But around month 5, things started shifting. Little comments at first. Does she have to be in the room while we eat? Yes. Can you put her in the other room when I sleep over? No. I just feel like she's always watching me. She's watching me, actually, because that's her job. Then it got worse. She started saying the dog made her anxious, that the dog was too clingy with me, that it was weird how the dog followed me everywhere. I explained again that the dog is a medical device with fur. That's not me being cold. That's literally how my neurologist describes her. She is a living, breathing seizure alert system, and I need her within range to do her job. About 6 weeks ago, my girlfriend hit me with the ultimatum. We were sitting on the couch, and she just paused the show and turned to me. I need to talk to you about something serious. Me? Okay. I think you need to rehome the dog. I actually laughed. Not to be mean, I genuinely thought she was joking. Me? Yeah, sure, I'll also rehome my left kidney while I'm at it. I'm serious. I've been reading online, and there are medications that control seizures. You don't need the dog anymore. It's affecting our relationship. Me? I'm already on 2 anticonvulsants. The dog is an additional layer. My neurologist specifically recommended. You're choosing a dog over me. Me? I'm choosing not to die on my bathroom floor, actually. So that's your answer? The dog stays, and I just have to deal with it. Me? That's not a choice. You're asking me to give up a medical accommodation. You wouldn't ask a diabetic to throw away their insulin pump because it's not cute enough. She left that night, slammed the door hard enough that my dog actually startled, which she almost never does. I figured she needed to cool off, and we'd talk later. Annoying, but couples argue, right? Wrong. So wrong. 3 days later, I get a call from my apartment management office. The property manager, who I've had a great relationship with for 2 years, sounded uncomfortable. She said they'd received a complaint that my dog had lunged aggressively at another resident in the hallway and that the dog was a danger to the community. My stomach dropped. Me? Who filed the complaint? I can't disclose that, but I need to let you know we're taking it seriously. We may need to discuss your pet situation. Me? She's not a pet. She's a trained psychiatric and medical service animal. I have documentation from the VA, from my neurologist, and from the training program. She's covered under the ADA and the Fair Housing Act. Dead silence on the phone. Me? Also, and I want to be very clear about this, my dog has never lunged at anyone. She's trained to ignore other people entirely. She doesn't react to strangers. That is literally part of her certification. Whoever filed this complaint filed a false report about a federally protected service animal. The property manager's tone changed immediately. She asked me to come to the office with my documentation. I brought everything. The VA letter, the neurologist's recommendation, the training program certification, the dog's task list, the whole binder. Yes, I have a binder. The VA told me to keep one because stuff like this happens more than you'd think. The property manager reviewed everything, and her face just slowly fell as she realized what had actually happened. She told me, carefully without naming names, that the complaint described a large aggressive pit bull mix that had snapped at a woman in the third-floor hallway. My dog is a lab mix. She's golden-colored. She is visibly, obviously not a pit bull. I live on the second floor. The description didn't match my dog at all. It matched nothing about my actual situation. It was fabricated from top to bottom. I asked the property manager directly, was this complaint filed by a resident or by a guest of a resident? She paused and said, it was filed by someone who identified themselves as a frequent visitor to the building. Yeah, it was my girlfriend. I didn't flip out. I didn't yell. I just sat there for a second and felt this weird calm wash over me. The kind of calm that comes when you realize someone you trusted just tried to take away the thing keeping you alive. I told the property manager I'd like to file a counter-report documenting that a false complaint was made against a protected service animal. She agreed. I also asked if she'd be willing to note in writing that the physical description in the complaint didn't match my dog. She said she would. Then I went home, sat on my couch, and my dog put her head in my lap like she always does, and I just sat there for about an hour trying to figure out how someone I'd been sleeping next to for 8 months could do something that reckless and cruel. I texted my girlfriend one message. I know what you did. We're done. Do not contact me. She responded with, you're seriously breaking up with me over a dog? I didn't respond. I blocked her number. That was 4 days ago. Here's where I need advice. A buddy of mine who's a paralegal told me that filing a false report about a service animal could actually have legal consequences. Some states have specific laws about interfering with service animals. He also said what she did could be considered a form of housing harassment since she tried to get my medical accommodation removed through a lie. I'm thinking about at least consulting with a lawyer. But part of me just wants to move on. She showed me who she is. Isn't that enough? Am I overreacting by even considering legal action? Or is this one of those situations where I need to do something to protect myself and my dog going forward? Update 1, 5 days later. All right, I didn't expect the first post to get the traction it did, but here we are. A lot has happened in the past few days, and honestly, I'm still processing some of it. I'll try to keep this organized. First, the legal stuff. I took the advice from the comments and called a disability rights attorney. Not the most expensive one in the phone book, just a guy who does AITA and fair housing cases. Free consultation. I explained the whole situation, and he got real quiet and then said something that stuck with me. What she did isn't just a relationship problem. She attempted to interfere with your medical accommodation through fraud. That's a different category of behavior. He walked me through a few things. In my state, knowingly filing a false report about a service animal is a misdemeanor. It's not some heavy felony, but it's on the books specifically because people pull this kind of thing more than anyone realizes. He also said the fair housing angle was strong because she deliberately tried to get my housing provider to remove my service animal through a fabricated complaint. That's textbook housing discrimination by proxy. He recommended I file a formal complaint with the apartment complex, done. Keep all documentation, done, binder gang, and consider filing a report with local animal control to get ahead of any future false reports. I did that too. The animal control officer was surprisingly helpful. She came out, met the dog, watched her work, reviewed the certification documents, and made a note in the system that the dog is a certified service animal with no history of aggression. She said it was smart that I came in proactively because, her exact words, we see vindictive reports all the time, and having this on file protects you. Now, here's where it gets messy. My ex did not take the blocking well. She showed up at my apartment 2 days after I blocked her. Didn't knock, just stood outside my door talking through it. My dog actually alerted on me during this because my stress levels were spiking, which is exactly the kind of thing that can trigger a seizure for me. So I'm sitting on my bedroom floor doing breathing exercises while my ex is monologuing through my front door about how I'm being dramatic and punishing her for having feelings. I didn't open the door. I texted my neighbor across the hall, older guy, retired Marine, absolute unit, and asked if he could let her know I wasn't going to engage. He stepped out and apparently told her she needed to leave or he'd call management. She left, but not before telling him I was keeping a dangerous animal in the building and that someone was going to get hurt. My neighbor came over afterwards and was like, "Brother, that woman has a screw loose. Your dog literally just sat there and yawned while she was screaming." He offered to write a witness statement about the dog's temperament, which I accepted because at this point, I'm building a paper trail like it's my second career. Then, and this is the part that really got me, I found out she'd been talking to other residents. Not many, but a few. Specifically, she'd approached 2 women in the building and told them that my dog had almost bitten her and that I was an unstable veteran who shouldn't be living alone. One of the women actually knocked on my door to ask about it. When I showed her the dog, who was wearing her vest and sitting calmly, and explained the situation, she was horrified. She said my ex had described the dog as a big black aggressive dog that growls at everyone. Again, golden lab mix. Doesn't growl. Has literally been trained to remain neutral in all social situations. The lies weren't even close to reality. My ex was just counting on people not checking. That resident also offered to write a statement. I now have 3 written statements from neighbors confirming the dog's temperament and contradicting my ex's claims. I went back to the property manager and shared all of this. She was livid, not at me, at the situation. She said she was going to formally ban my ex from the building's guest list. Apparently, they can do that. My ex's name is now flagged, and if she shows up, front desk is supposed to call me and then call police if she doesn't leave. The attorney also sent a cease and desist letter to my ex. Nothing fancy, just a formal stop contacting my client, stop making false statements about his service animal. Any further attempts to interfere with his housing or medical accommodations will result in legal action. Standard stuff, but on letterhead with a case number, which tends to make people take things seriously. Guess what happened next? If you guessed, she respected the cease and desist like a reasonable adult. You don't know my ex. Her mom called me from a number I didn't recognize, so I picked up. Her mom went on a whole speech about how I was ruining her daughter's life, and that all she wanted was for you to show her she mattered more than an animal. I let her finish and then said, "Ma'am, your daughter filed a false report about my medical service animal, attempted to get my housing accommodation revoked, showed up at my door uninvited after I ended the relationship, and has been telling my neighbors I'm an unstable veteran with an aggressive dog. None of those things are the behavior of someone who just wanted to feel important." Long pause. Her mom, "She told me you were neglecting her for a pet." I have a seizure disorder. The dog detects seizures before they happen. Without her, I end up on the floor with potential brain damage. Your daughter asked me to get rid of the thing that prevents that. When I said no, she tried to force the outcome by lying to my landlord. That's not a relationship issue. That's dangerous. Her mom got quiet. Then she said something like, "Well, she's very upset." And I said, "I understand that, but being upset doesn't give someone the right to put my health at risk." She hung up. Haven't heard from her since. I'm not going to lie. This has been rough. Not because I miss the relationship. I don't. But because every time I look at my dog, I think about how close my ex came to actually causing real damage. If the property manager had been less professional, if she'd just taken the complaint at face value and told me to remove the dog, I could have lost my housing or been forced into a situation where I'm having seizures with no alert system. People have died from that. That's not hypothetical. My buddy who's a paralegal is also helping me look into whether the statements she made to residents, calling me unstable and implying I'm dangerous, could constitute defamation. It's a high bar, but given that she specifically used my veteran status and disability to paint me as a threat, there might be something there. I'm not trying to bankrupt anyone. I just want it documented, and I want her to understand that actions have consequences. More updates to come. My attorney is drafting a formal complaint to the state's Fair Housing Agency. Apparently, they take these things very seriously, especially when it involves a disabled veteran and a documented pattern of interference. Oh, and the dog? She's asleep on her bed right now with her favorite squeaky toy. She's doing great. Thanks for asking. Update 2, 3 weeks later. Okay, final update, because honestly I need to close this chapter and stop refreshing my inbox. So remember the cease and desist? The one that specifically said, do not contact, do not make false statements, do not interfere with housing or medical accommodations. My ex violated it. Twice. First, she created a fake email account and sent a message to my apartment complex's general management inbox. The email claimed to be from a concerned neighbor and stated that my dog had been barking aggressively at all hours and had charged at a child in the parking lot. There was no child. There was no barking. There was no charging. My dog sleeps through thunderstorms. She's the most boring animal on earth, and I say that with love. Here's the thing about my ex. She's not as clever as she thinks she is. The fake email was created with a name that was clearly made up, but the writing style, the specific complaints, the detail about the third-floor hallway, again, it matched the original complaint almost word for word. My property manager flagged it immediately and forwarded it to my attorney. Second violation. She apparently went on a local community social media group, one of those neighborhood watch type pages, and made a post warning people about a dangerous dog in my apartment complex. She didn't name me directly, but described the building, the floor, and the dog in enough detail that several people figured out. One of them was my neighbor, the retired Marine, who screenshot everything and sent it to me. The post got some traction before the moderators took it down. A few people commented stuff like, OMG, that's terrifying, and why do they allow aggressive dogs? But a couple of people who actually live in the building pushed back with, I've seen that dog, and it's the calmest animal I've ever met. And this sounds like a personal vendetta, not a safety concern. The internet can be decent sometimes. My attorney added both of these violations to the formal complaint. Now, here's where things actually started having real consequences. The fair housing complaint went through. An investigator was assigned, and they interviewed me, the property manager, and reviewed all the documentation. The original false complaint, the cease and desist, the subsequent violations, the neighbor statements, the animal control report, everything. My attorney said the investigator told him this was one of the more clear-cut cases of service animal interference she'd seen. My ex was contacted by the Fair Housing Agency for her side of things. According to my attorney, she apparently told the investigator that the dog really was aggressive and that she feared for her safety. The investigator then asked why the physical description in her original complaint didn't match the actual dog, why animal control found zero evidence of aggression, and why multiple residents had submitted statements contradicting her claims. Apparently, she didn't have great answers for those. The outcome, my ex received a formal finding of housing discrimination. It goes on a record that follows her. It's not a criminal conviction, but it's a civil rights violation finding. If she ever pulls something like this again, with me or anyone else, that finding is there. My attorney said it also means that if I wanted to pursue a civil suit for damages, the finding would be strong evidence in my favor. I decided not to sue. I thought about it. I lost sleep over it. But honestly, I don't want to be tied to this person for another year through litigation. The finding is on record. The cease and desist is in effect. She's banned from my building. Animal control has my dog flagged as a protected service animal. My neighbors know the truth. That's enough. Now, the part one wasn't expecting. The community social media post she made, it got screenshot and shared outside the neighborhood group. Someone who recognized the situation posted it in a veteran support group that I'm loosely connected to. One of the admins reached out to me to confirm the story, and then they made a post, not naming my ex, but describing the situation about how service animal interference is a real and growing problem for disabled veterans. It got a lot of engagement. A local veterans advocacy organization picked it up and used it as a case study in a presentation they were doing about housing rights for disabled vets. I didn't ask for any of that. I don't want attention. But knowing that what happened to me might help the next vet dealing with this garbage, that means something to me. And yeah, through that advocacy group, I found out that what my ex did is more common than you'd think. Partners, family members, landlords, even neighbors filing false reports to get service animals removed because they're inconvenient or they just don't like dogs. It's a real problem, and most people don't fight it because they don't know their rights or can't afford a lawyer. I was lucky because the initial consultation was free and the attorney took the case partly, because he does pro bono work for veterans. As for my ex, last I heard through the grapevine, the fair housing finding made its way back to her workplace somehow. I had nothing to do with that. I genuinely don't know how it happened, but housing discrimination findings are technically public record in my state. Her employer is apparently a company that does government contracting, and they take civil rights compliance very seriously for obvious reasons. I don't know if anything happened with her job, and frankly, I don't care. I didn't set that domino up. She did 8 months ago when she decided that her comfort was more important than my medical needs. Her mom tried to call me one more time about a week ago. I let it go to voicemail. The message was basically, "I hope you're happy. You've ruined my daughter's reputation." I saved it, added it to the file, didn't respond. Here's where I'm at now. Mentally better than I was. I started seeing a therapist at the VA who specializes in relationship trauma for vets. Turns out that having someone you trust try to take away your medical equipment while simultaneously trying to get you evicted from your home does a number on your ability to trust people. Who knew? My seizures have actually been more manageable lately. My neurologist thinks it's because my stress levels dropped significantly after cutting my ex out. Turns out toxic relationships are bad for neurological conditions. Groundbreaking medical discovery, I know. The dog is perfect. She alerted me twice this month. Both times I was able to get to a safe position before the seizure hit. No falls, no injuries, no trips to the ER. She's currently lying on my feet while I type this. She gets a new toy every week because she deserves it and nobody can tell me otherwise. To everyone who commented on the original post telling me to protect myself legally, thank you. I almost didn't. I almost just walked away and let it go. But you were right. If I hadn't documented everything, if I hadn't filed with animal control proactively, if I hadn't gotten the attorney involved, my ex would have just kept escalating. People like her don't stop when they feel like they're losing. They push harder. The only thing that stops them is a wall they can't push through, and that wall is documentation, legal protection, and people who are willing to back you up. If you're a veteran with a service animal and someone is giving you trouble about it, document everything. Contact your local disability rights organization. File with fair housing. You have more protection than you think. Don't let anyone, not a partner, not a landlord, not some random person who doesn't like dogs, convince you that your medical needs are negotiable. They're not. I'm done with this chapter. Forward is the only direction that matters. And to my dog, you're the best girl. You're always going to be the best girl. No one's ever taking you from me. That's it. That's the post.
Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like and subscribe for new content.